I want you to imagine this moment very clearly, because our story begins in a small room with a soft light, a quiet morning, and a single person sitting at a wooden desk. Maybe this person is a little like you. Maybe they have ideas inside them, ideas that feel warm and alive, ideas that whisper, "Please, take me into the world." But this person does not know how to begin. They want to speak clearly. They want to act with confidence. They want to turn their ideas into action, but something inside feels slow or stuck or unsure. And so, on this soft morning, with the sun touching their hands, they breathe in slowly and think, "How do I start?" This is the moment where our story begins, not with a big explosion or a dramatic event, but with a quiet question in a quiet room. And sometimes, the quiet questions are the most powerful ones. Sometimes, the small questions are the ones that open the biggest doors. And as you listen to my voice now, I want you to imagine this person. Imagine their breath, imagine their thoughts, because in their journey, you will hear echoes of your own. In their steps, you will feel your own feet moving. And in their voice, you will find the beginning of your own voice becoming stronger, clearer, and more alive. The story starts with a name. Our main character is called Daniel. Daniel is not famous. He is not rich. He is not a leader or a public speaker. He is simply an ordinary person with a soft heart and a quiet mind. But inside him, there is a small fire, a desire to change something in his life. He has many ideas for work, ideas for helping people, ideas for creating something new. But these ideas live only in his head, like birds that never fly. And Daniel is tired of this. He wants to speak with power, speak with clarity, speak with confidence. He wants to turn his ideas into action, but he does not know how. He thinks often, maybe too often. He plans, he imagines, he dreams. But when the moment to act arrives, he hesitates. He feels nervous. He feels uncertain. He feels like his ideas are too small or too vague or too weak. And so the days pass, the weeks pass, and his ideas stay locked inside him. He does not feel proud of this, but he also does not know how to change it. This is the challenge that many people face, and maybe you understand this feeling too, the feeling of wanting to speak, but being afraid that your words are not enough, the feeling of wanting to act, but worrying that the world will not listen. And so Daniel sits at his desk and wonders, how do ideas become action? On this particular morning, he makes a small promise to himself. He decides to go outside and take a walk. Not a long walk. Not a fast walk. Just a simple walk, hoping that the fresh air will clear his mind. As he steps outside, he feels the cool morning air on his face. The street is quiet. The world feels peaceful. And slowly, Daniel begins talking to himself, softly, almost whispering, as if practicing his thoughts in the open air. He says, "I have ideas. I want to act. I want to speak more clearly." His voice is soft at first, but with each step, it becomes a little stronger. The world around him feels calm, and the rhythm of his footsteps helps him feel grounded. He listens to his own voice as if it belongs to someone else, someone wiser, someone braver. And for the first time in a long time, he feels a tiny bit of hope. Not a big loud hope, but a gentle one. As Daniel walks, he notices a small park bench near a quiet pond. The surface of the water reflects the sky. It looks like a mirror made of light. Daniel sits down and watches the water move softly with the breeze. He feels something inside him settle. The world feels slow and gentle, and he feels safe enough to ask himself a deeper question. Why am I afraid to act? Why am I afraid to speak? The question surprises him. He pauses. He looks at his hands. And slowly, memories return. He remembers moments when he tried to speak but felt ignored. He remembers moments when he shared an idea and people did not understand. He remembers moments when he wanted to act but felt judged. These memories feel heavy, like stones he has been carrying for a long time. But Daniel realizes something important. He realizes that even though these memories are old, he has been living as if they are still happening. He has been letting the old fears speak louder than his new dreams. And this realization opens a small door inside him. The sunlight becomes warmer. The wind becomes softer. And Daniel feels something inside shift, just a little. He hears a child laughing in the distance. He watches a leaf fall gently onto the pond. He takes a slow breath and tells himself, maybe I can start small. Maybe I can learn to speak with confidence, one sentence at a time. And at that moment, a new idea begins to grow. Not one of his old ideas, but a fresh one, a simple one. The idea is this. What if speaking clearly is not about being perfect? What if action is not about being fearless? What if it is simply about beginning? This idea feels gentle but strong, like a small seed that knows it will become a tree someday. Daniel continues walking. With each step, he repeats short sentences to himself, practicing simple English, speaking slowly, letting the words flow naturally. I can start now. I can speak clearly. I can turn ideas into action. His voice sounds different now. It sounds a little braver, a little warmer, a little more alive. And as he walks, he begins to realize another truth. Ideas are like birds. They're meant to fly. But they cannot fly if he keeps them inside his mind. He needs to open the window. He needs to speak them into the world. He needs to act on them, even if the first steps feel small or shaky. The world does not need perfect ideas. It needs real ideas. Ideas that move. Ideas that breathe. Ideas that grow through action. He returns home after his walk and sits again at his wooden desk. But now the room feels different. It feels brighter. He picks up a notebook, opens to a blank page, and writes a single sentence. Today, I begin. The sentence looks simple on the page, almost too simple. But when Daniel looks at it, he feels something powerful. He feels that this one sentence might be the beginning of a new chapter in his life. He reads the sentence out loud, slowly, clearly, letting each word land with intention. And he smiles. It is a small smile, but it feels real. What Daniel does not know is that this is the first spark, the first moment of transformation. The moment when an idea moves from inside the mind into the real world. The moment when thought becomes sound. The moment when intention becomes possibility. And as you listen to this story, I want you to feel your own spark. I want you to think about the ideas you have been holding inside. The ideas you want to speak. The dreams you want to act on. Because this story is not only about Daniel. It is also about you. It is about your voice, your confidence, your ability to turn ideas into action. And as Daniel stands up from his desk, takes a deep breath, and prepares to start his day, I want you to imagine doing the same. Imagine you are standing with him, ready to take the first step. Ready to speak your ideas into existence. Ready to let your voice grow stronger with each moment. And in this gentle beginning, Daniel learns something that you can learn too. The first step is not loud. The first step is not big. The first step is simply choosing to begin. And when you begin, even with a single simple sentence, you create a small movement inside yourself. A movement that will grow. A movement that will guide you. A movement that will help your ideas come alive. This is the start of Daniel's journey. This is the start of your journey. And together, we will walk through this path, one clear, simple, confident sentence at a time. Because turning ideas into action is not a secret skill. It is a practice. It is a voice. It is a journey that begins with a single step, a step you are taking right now by listening, by learning, by letting the story guide you forward. And as Daniel closes his notebook and steps into the rest of his day, the air feels different, the world feels different, and he feels different. He does not have all the answers yet, but he has something better. He has begun. Daniel wakes up the next morning with a feeling he cannot fully describe. It is not excitement, but it is not fear either. It feels like a soft vibration inside his chest, almost like a quiet drumbeat telling him, today matters. Today is different. He sits up slowly, rubs his eyes, and listens to the silence of his room. For a moment, he wonders if yesterday's spark was only a moment of optimism that will disappear. But then he remembers the walk, the pond, the leaf floating on the water, the gentle breeze, and most of all, the words he spoke aloud. He remembers writing, "Today I begin." And the memory gives him a calm courage. It is not loud or dramatic. It feels steady, simple, real. Daniel stands and walks to his small kitchen to make tea. As he waits for the water to boil, he begins speaking to himself again, softly, like he did on the walk. But today, his voice feels clearer. He says, I want to speak well. I want to act. I want to grow. The words feel like gentle steps inside him. They feel like someone is building a small bridge from his thoughts to his actions. And he knows this bridge is important. Without it, his ideas stay locked in his mind. With it, they begin to move into the world. After he drinks his tea, he sits down at his desk, opens the same notebook from yesterday, and writes a new sentence. My ideas deserve my voice. He reads it out loud. His voice is steady. Not perfect, but steady. And as he reads the sentence again, he begins to understand something about himself. For many years, he has been speaking quietly, not only with others, but with himself. His inner voice has been soft, unsure, and afraid. But today, he feels a new voice growing inside him, not loud, but honest, direct, and warm. A voice that says, I can try. Daniel decides to practice speaking as part of his morning routine. He steps in front of a small mirror near his window. He looks at his reflection, the reflection of a normal person with normal fears and normal dreams. He takes a slow breath and says a simple sentence, I can express myself. He feels strange at first, almost embarrassed, but he continues. Again, he says, I can express myself. This time, the sentence feels deeper. He watches his mouth move. He hears his tone. He listens to his pacing. And he realizes how different these words sound when spoken with intention. As he practices, he notices something interesting. When he speaks slowly and clearly, he feels more confident. When he speaks too quickly, he feels rushed and nervous. And so he chooses slow. Slow feels safe. Slow feels strong. Slow feels real. He begins creating small sentences and repeating them. My ideas matter. My voice is growing. I can turn ideas into action. With each repetition, he feels the bridge inside him becoming stronger. He feels his voice connecting to his thoughts connecting to his feelings, and his feelings connecting to his actions. He decides to take another walk, like yesterday. He steps outside, and the morning air is cool again, but today it feels fresher, almost as if the world is cheering for him quietly. As he walks down the street, he practices speaking simple thoughts out loud. Not loud enough for others to hear, but loud enough for himself. He says, I want to use my voice. I want to be clear. I want to be brave. These sentences become like footsteps. Each one takes him a little further forward. Daniel reaches the same park, the same pond, and the same bench from yesterday. But the water looks different today. Maybe the light is different. Maybe Daniel is different. He sits on the bench and watches the way the breeze creates gentle ripples on the surface of the pond. The movement reminds him of speaking. He thinks a small sound can make a ripple in the world. And he likes that thought. Suddenly, he hears a voice behind him. A warm, friendly voice that says, "Nice morning, isn't it?" Daniel turns and sees an older man with silver hair and bright eyes. The man smiles kindly and sits down at the other end of the bench. Daniel feels a little shy, but he answers, "Yes, it's a beautiful morning." His voice is calm but a little soft. The older man looks at him with a gentle curiosity and says, "You look like you're thinking deeply." Daniel smiles nervously and says, "I'm just practicing speaking." The older man nods thoughtfully and says, "That's good. Speaking is like walking. You get better by doing it." Daniel feels comfortable enough to ask, "Do you practice speaking too?" The older man chuckles softly and says, "Every day. I teach a small group of people how to express themselves. But the truth is, I'm still learning too. We all are." Daniel feels a warm sensation inside him. He feels understood. He feels seen. He feels less alone. The man says, "If you want to improve your speaking, start simple. Speak with honesty. Speak with clarity. And speak with your heart, not only your mind." Daniel listens carefully. These words feel important, like seeds being planted in his thoughts. The older man stands up and says, "Remember this. Your voice improves every time you use it." Then he gives Daniel a small nod and begins walking away. Daniel watches him leave and feels gratitude rising in him. This simple encounter makes him realize something powerful. Everyone is learning. Everyone is practicing. No one is perfect. And speaking is not about perfection, it is about connection. Daniel stays at the bench a little longer. He closes his eyes and listens to the sounds of the park, the wind, the birds, the water, the soft footsteps of people walking by. He breathes slowly and says quietly, "My voice can grow." And in that simple moment, he truly believes it. As he walks back home, he feels lighter. Not because he has solved everything. Not because he has become a perfect speaker. But because he has taken small steps, and small steps create movement. Movement creates confidence. And confidence creates action. When he enters his home, he sits again at his desk. He opens his notebook, turns to a fresh page, and writes another sentence. "I am practicing every day." He reads it out loud slowly, feeling the words vibrate gently inside him. And then he continues writing, letting his ideas flow like the ripples on the pond. He writes about the older man's wisdom. He writes about the importance of slow speaking. He writes about the feeling of hearing his own voice with intention. As the words fill the page, Daniel feels something he has not felt in a long time: progress. Not huge progress, but real progress. Progress he can feel in his voice, in his thoughts, in his breath, and in the warmth inside his chest. He thinks back to the moment when he first asked himself why he was afraid to act. Now he feels he is part of the answer. Action begins with the voice inside you. The voice you use when nobody is listening. The voice that whispers your dreams. The voice that encourages you to try again. And Daniel understands that if he wants to turn ideas into action, he must first strengthen this inner voice. He must speak to himself with kindness, with confidence, with courage. The day passes slowly, gently. Daniel keeps practicing small sentences throughout the afternoon. Sometimes he whispers them. Sometimes he says them a little louder. Sometimes he watches himself in the mirror. Sometimes he writes the sentences down. And each time, he feels a little more comfortable, a little more confident, a little more connected to his own thoughts. In the evening, when the sky darkens and the first stars appear, Daniel steps outside once more. The air is cool, and the lights of the city feel soft and calm. He looks up at the sky and says one more sentence, "I am learning to speak with strength." And in that moment, he feels proud. Proud of the small steps, proud of the simple practice, proud of the gentle progress. He knows that he is still at the beginning of his journey. But he also knows that beginnings matter. Beginnings shape the path ahead. Beginnings teach you who you can become. And so Daniel walks back inside, ready for tomorrow, ready to practice again, ready to let his voice grow more and more. He ends his day with a quiet reflection. Turning ideas into action begins with speaking them into existence. And he falls asleep with a smile, knowing that his journey has truly started. Daniel woke the next morning with a warm feeling inside his chest, a feeling that was gentle but steady, almost like a quiet reminder that he was moving forward, even if the steps were small. When he opened his eyes, the room looked almost the same as always, the soft morning light, the wooden desk, the notebook waiting for him, but something inside him had changed. He felt a little more awake, a little more alive, a little more connected to himself. It was not excitement, not fear, not pressure. It was simply a calm sense of direction. And sometimes, direction is the most powerful feeling of all. He walked to the kitchen and made tea, the steam rising slowly like a soft invitation to begin the day with clarity. As he waited, he whispered to himself, "I am learning. I am growing. I am moving forward." The words were simple, but they grounded him. Yesterday had taught him that speaking to himself was not strange. It was a practice, a gentle training of the voice inside him. And he felt the echo of the older man's words, "Your voice improves every time you use it." He let those words settle in his chest as he held the warm cup of tea in his hands. After breakfast, Daniel sat at his desk again, opened his notebook, and read the sentences he had written in the past 2 days. "Today, I begin. My ideas deserve my voice. I am practicing every day." As he read, he felt a soft sense of progress, like watching a seed slowly open and push through the soil. These sentences were not complex or poetic. They were simple, but simplicity had become Daniel's strength. Simple words spoken with intention had helped him begin to change. He picked up his pen and wrote a new sentence, "Action needs a bridge." He looked at the sentence and felt a quiet recognition. For so many years, his ideas and his actions had lived in different worlds. His ideas stayed in his mind safe, untouched, unreal. His actions lived in the real world full of fear, judgment, uncertainty. And between the two, there was no bridge, no path, no connection. But now, through speaking, through practicing, through simple daily steps, he was beginning to build that bridge. Daniel decided that today, he would focus on building that bridge with intention. He stood up, walked to the mirror again, and took a slow breath. He looked at his reflection, not with criticism or doubt, but with curiosity. He said slowly, "Speaking is the bridge between thought and action." The words felt true. He repeated them, this time with a little more confidence. "Speaking is the bridge between thought and action." And once more, with even more clarity, "Speaking is the bridge between thought and action." Each repetition felt like he was laying down another plank on that invisible bridge inside him. He stepped outside for his morning walk again. The air felt fresh and the world felt quiet, as if giving him space to continue his practice. As he walked, he spoke softly to himself, "When I speak my ideas, they become real. When I speak my goals, they become possible. When I speak my fears, they become smaller." His steps were slow and steady, and the rhythm of his walking supported the rhythm of his words. He reached the park and looked for the older man, though he did not expect to see him. The pond looked calm, its surface smooth and shining like polished glass. Daniel sat on the bench and watched the water, letting his thoughts settle. He said softly, "My voice is growing every day." The sentence felt warm on his tongue. Then he asked himself an important question. What idea do I want to bring into action? This question felt bigger than anything he had asked himself so far. He closed his eyes and allowed his mind to move slowly, calmly. Many ideas came to him, improving his work, helping others, creating small projects, learning new skills. But one idea rose above the rest, clear and sincere. I want to help people express themselves, just like I am learning to express myself. The idea felt honest. It felt connected to his journey. And it felt possible. He spoke the idea out loud. I want to help people express themselves. Saying it gave it weight. Saying it gave it life. Saying it gave it direction. And Daniel knew that this was the first idea he wanted to bring into action. He did not know how. He did not know when. He did not know what the first step should be. But he knew the idea had wings now, small wings, but wings ready to fly. He walked back home feeling a mixture of curiosity and determination. Inside his room, he wrote the idea in his notebook. I want to help people express themselves. Underneath, he added, and I will start with myself. Those simple words gave him a sense of purpose, a sense that he was not just practicing for himself, but for others who might one day feel the same fears he used to feel. Daniel spent the afternoon speaking simple sentences again. He practiced clarity. He practiced slow speaking. He practiced confident speaking. He practiced speaking with warmth. He practiced speaking with intention. Sometimes he practiced while standing. Sometimes while sitting. Sometimes while walking around his room. And with each minute of practice, he felt the bridge between thought and action growing stronger. But as the day continued, a new challenge appeared: doubt. It did not arrive suddenly. It crept in slowly, like a quiet shadow. Daniel began thinking, what if I am not good enough? What if I cannot help anyone? What if my voice will never be strong enough? These thoughts felt heavy, like stones pulling at his confidence. His chest tightened a little, and his voice softened again. He felt the old fear returning, the fear that had lived inside him for so long. But instead of running from the fear, Daniel remembered the older man's words and his own practice. He stood in front of the mirror again and said, I feel doubt. And that is okay. The fear did not disappear. But the moment he spoke it, it became less powerful. He said again, I feel doubt. And that is okay. The tension in his chest softened. He continued, doubt is part of the journey. And slowly, the fear turned into something he could look at, understand, and accept. Daniel realized something important. The voice inside him had two parts. One part carried fear, and one part carried courage. And the goal was not to erase fear. The goal was to speak courage more often. To let courage have a louder voice. To let courage build the bridge forward. He practiced speaking sentences that acknowledged both parts of himself. I feel uncertain, but I can still try. I feel nervous, but I can still speak. I feel afraid, but I can still take the next step. These sentences felt powerful because they were honest. And honesty always carries strength. In the evening, Daniel sat by his window and looked at the sky turning from orange to deep blue. He felt tired, but the tiredness felt good, like the feeling after a long walk or a meaningful conversation. He whispered to himself, I am learning to speak bravely. Then he added, bravery is speaking even when the voice shakes. And this truth settled deep inside him. He closed his notebook for the night, but kept one final thought alive in his heart. Turning ideas into action does not happen in one moment. It happens in many small moments, many small practices, many small choices. And today he had made those choices. Today he had spoken his ideas. Today, he had faced his doubts. Today, he had moved across the bridge, even if only a few steps. And before he closed his eyes to sleep, he said softly, "I am becoming someone who acts." That single sentence carried him gently into the night, ready for tomorrow, ready for the next part of his journey. Daniel woke earlier than usual the next day. It was still dark outside, and the sky was a deep blue, almost black, but he didn't feel tired. He felt something different, a quiet energy, a calm determination that was growing inside him, steady and strong. He lay in bed for a moment, listening to the silence of the early morning. The world felt still, peaceful, waiting. And in that stillness, Daniel felt ready for something new. He didn't know what it would be yet, but he knew it would be something important. He sat up slowly, placed his feet on the cool floor, and took a deep breath. "Today," he whispered, "I will take my first real step." The words sounded bigger than anything he had said before. They carried weight. They carried intention. They carried the beginning of action. He remembered the bridge he had been building between his thoughts and his actions. Today, he felt ready to walk on that bridge, even if just a little. Daniel made tea again, the familiar warmth calming his hands. As he waited, he spoke simple sentences to himself. "I am ready to try. I am ready to act. I am ready to grow." Speaking them out loud made them feel real, strong, alive. He was not repeating words anymore. He was declaring a direction. After breakfast, he sat at his desk and opened his notebook. He looked at the sentences from the previous days. The words felt like small stones that had created a foundation. He read the sentence he wrote yesterday, "I want to help people express themselves." He touched the page gently with his fingertips and said it out loud, slowly, "I want to help people express themselves." The sentence felt bigger today. It felt like a promise. Daniel began thinking, if he wanted to help people express themselves, he needed to take a step that connected his voice with the world. A step that was real. A step outside of his notebook, outside of his mirror, outside of quiet practice. But what could that first step be? He didn't want something huge. He didn't want something scary. He wanted something simple, something he could handle, something he could complete. He asked himself aloud, "What is one small action I can take today?" He waited for the answer. At first, his mind felt blank. But after a moment, a small idea appeared, gentle, simple, possible. He said it softly, "I can share my idea with one person." That idea felt doable. Not big. Not overwhelming. Just the right size for a first real step. Daniel decided he would talk to someone he trusted. Someone who would not judge him or laugh at his journey. Someone who cared. The first person who came to his mind was his friend Mira. She was warm, patient, and always listening. They had known each other for years, and she had always been supportive, even during times when Daniel was unsure of himself. He took his phone in his hand, but suddenly, he felt nervous. He felt his chest tighten, his thoughts race, his breath shorten. Doubt appeared again, like a small shadow creeping in. He whispered, "What if she doesn't understand? What if she thinks my idea is silly? What if I'm not ready?" But then he remembered his practice. He remembered the sentences he spoke yesterday. He stood up, walked to the mirror, and looked himself in the eyes. He said, slowly, clearly, "I feel nervous. And that is okay." He breathed in. "I feel scared. And that is okay." He breathed out. "I can still take one small step." His reflection looked a little stronger with each sentence. His voice felt a little steadier. And he realized something important. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is speaking and acting even when fear is present. He picked up his phone again, took a slow breath, and typed a simple message to Mira. "Hi, are you free to talk today? I want to share something with you." He stared at the message for a long moment before pressing send. And when he finally did, he felt a rush inside, not fear, not excitement, but relief. He had taken the first step. He had moved from thought into action. A few minutes later, Mira replied with her usual warmth, "Of course. Call whenever you're ready." Daniel felt his heart beat faster. He swallowed, took a deep breath, and whispered to himself, "You can do this." Then, slowly, he pressed the call button. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Daniel felt himself getting more nervous with each ring. But then, Myra's voice filled the line, soft, friendly, familiar. "Hey, Daniel. How are you?" Daniel felt his shoulders relax a little. Her voice made him feel safe. He listened to a father talking softly to his child, his voice full of gentleness. Daniel realized something powerful. People don't only communicate with words. They communicate with their energy, their rhythm, their intention. A sentence can be simple, but the way it is spoken can make it strong, soft, warm, or uncertain. And Daniel knew he wanted to learn this, not only the words, but the feeling behind the words. As he continued walking, he passed a small community center. A sign near the entrance caught his eye, "Free Storytelling Workshop, today at 3 p.m. Daniel stopped walking. His heart skipped. A workshop? Storytelling? Free? Today? It felt like the world was offering him an invitation. He whispered, "Maybe this is my next step." But then fear appeared again, soft but real. A workshop, he thought. With people? Speaking? Sharing? Am I ready for that? His chest tightened, but Daniel had been learning how to handle fear. He closed his eyes and breathed slowly. "Fear is normal," he whispered. "Fear is part of the journey. I can still choose to act." He stood there, in front of the community center, letting the 2 voices inside him speak, fear and courage. And then, he chose the voice he wanted to follow. He said softly, "I will go. I will try. I will learn." He continued his walk, feeling both nervous and excited. He repeated calming sentences as he went, one step at a time. "I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be present." And by the time he returned home, he felt ready, not perfectly ready, but ready enough. The hours passed slowly. Daniel prepared by practicing simple speaking exercises. He stood in front of the mirror again and said sentences like, "I can speak simply. I can share something small. I can listen deeply." He practiced breathing slow, steady breaths that helped him feel grounded. He reminded himself that everyone in the workshop would be learning too. No one would be perfect. No one would expect him to be perfect. When the time came, Daniel left his home and walked back to the community center. The building looked welcoming in the afternoon light, its windows glowing softly. Daniel stepped inside, and his heart pounded, but in a steady, determined way. He felt alive. Inside the room, there were only a few chairs arranged in a small circle. 5 or 6 people were already there, chatting quietly. Daniel sat down, choosing a seat near the corner, but not too far from the group. He looked around. Everyone seemed ordinary, nervous smiles, curious eyes, gentle energy. And Daniel realized something comforting. They were all human, just like him. A woman with warm eyes and a soft smile entered the room. She introduced herself as Clara, the workshop leader. Her voice was calm and friendly, the kind of voice that made the air feel safe. She said, "Welcome, everyone. Today we will explore simple storytelling. Don't worry, you don't need experience. You just need an open heart and a willingness to try." Daniel felt something in him relax. Clara began with a simple activity. She asked each person to introduce themselves using one sentence. That was all. One sentence. Daniel felt relieved. He listened as the others spoke. I'm here to gain confidence. I want to find my voice. I want to express myself better. Their sentences were short, honest, human. And when it was Daniel's turn, he breathed slowly and said, I am learning to speak clearly and express myself. His voice was steady. Clara smiled warmly and nodded. That small nod made Daniel feel 10 times lighter. As the workshop continued, Clara guided everyone through gentle exercises, sharing small memories, describing simple objects, speaking in pairs, listening to each other. None of it was difficult. The room felt warm, supportive, patient. Daniel noticed how people's voices changed as they grew more comfortable, how shy voices became stronger, how nervous voices became steadier, how hesitant voices became honest and open. Then came the moment that changed something deep inside Daniel. Clara said, Now, each of you will share a small true story, something simple, something real, something from your own life. Daniel felt his heart tighten. A story? From his own life? Out loud? His palms felt warm. His breath felt shallow. Fear grew again. But he remembered his practice. He remembered Myra's support. He remembered the older man's words. He whispered to himself, I can share something small. And he waited for his turn. When it came, Daniel took a deep breath and began speaking. He told a very simple story about his morning walks, about the pond in the park, about the leaf floating gently on the water, and about how that moment helped him understand that ideas need movement. It was not a dramatic story, not a big story, but it was honest. And when he finished, the room was quiet for a moment, a warm, thoughtful quiet. Then Clara smiled and said, Thank you, Daniel. That was beautiful. Your story was gentle and meaningful. The others nodded softly. Daniel felt a wave of warmth inside him, a warmth he had never felt before. For the first time in his life, he had spoken a story out loud to strangers. And they had listened. They had understood. They had appreciated it. His voice had entered the world and touched others. And in that moment, Daniel felt his entire path shift. On the walk home, the world looked different, the colors brighter, the air lighter, his steps steadier. He felt proud, not of being perfect, not of being impressive, but of being real. At home, he wrote in his notebook, Today I spoke a story. Today I took a true step. Today I became someone who acts. And that night, Daniel fell asleep with the softest smile, the smile of someone who had just felt their voice come to life. Daniel woke the next morning with a feeling he had never felt before. It wasn't excitement, and it wasn't fear. It was something deeper, quieter, more meaningful. It was the feeling of having stepped into a new version of himself. When he opened his eyes, he didn't rush to get out of bed. He lay there for a moment, letting the memory of yesterday's workshop wash over him, the warm room, the gentle voices, the circle of people sharing stories, and the moment he spoke his own story and saw others truly listening. He whispered to the morning light, I did it. I really did it. There was no disbelief in his voice, no doubt, no hesitation. Just simple truth. His voice sounded different, not louder, but clearer, as if each word came from a place deeper inside him. He stood up slowly and walked to the window. The sky was a soft gray, the kind that comes before gentle rain. The world looked calm, and Daniel felt that same calm inside him. It was as if his mind and the morning had decided to move at the same pace. He made tea again, the ritual that had become his anchor. As he waited for the water to boil, he practiced speaking simple sentences, but this time something felt different. He wasn't practicing because he was afraid. He was practicing because he wanted to. Because speaking had become a natural part of his day, like brushing his teeth or opening his notebook. He said softly, My voice is growing. I am learning to express myself. Each day, I become stronger. The sentences floated in the warm air of his kitchen, steady and sincere. After breakfast, Daniel sat at his desk and opened his notebook. The pages were filling quickly now, sentences, reflections, small discoveries. He looked at a blank page and wrote, "Yesterday changed something in me." Beneath it, he wrote, "I felt heard." He paused for a moment, letting the meaning of those words sink into his heart. Being heard wasn't about being famous or powerful or loud. It was about connection. It was about sharing a piece of himself and having someone receive it with understanding. Daniel realized something important. Many people want to speak well, but what they really want is to be understood. They want their voice to matter. They want their ideas to come alive. And now Daniel understood that feeling from the inside. He whispered to himself, "I want to help others feel heard too." He didn't know exactly how he would do that yet. But the direction was clear. Not sharp or detailed, just clear enough to follow. Like a soft path in a quiet forest. As the day passed, Daniel felt something pulling him toward the community center again. Not because he had a workshop to attend, but because he wanted to step back into the place where he felt his voice open. He wanted to thank Clara. He wanted to feel the energy of that room again. He wanted to understand more about storytelling, not only for himself, but for others. In the late morning, he walked there slowly, enjoying the cool air and the light breeze. When he reached the building, the door was open. He stepped inside, feeling a familiar warmth rise in him. The front room was quiet except for the sound of soft footsteps in the hallway. A moment later, Clara appeared, holding a stack of papers. She looked surprised, but in a kind way. "Daniel," she said warmly, "I didn't expect to see you today. How are you feeling after yesterday?" Daniel smiled, a little shy but genuinely happy. "I'm still processing everything," he said. "Yesterday meant a lot to me." Clara set down the papers and walked closer. Her eyes held the same gentle understanding they had during the workshop. "I could see that it meant something," she said softly. "Your story was beautiful. You spoke with sincerity." Daniel felt his cheeks warm slightly. "Thank you," he said. Then, after a short pause, he added, "I came because I think I want to learn more. I want to continue practicing. And I want to understand how to help others express themselves too." Clara listened deeply, her expression softening even more. "That's a wonderful direction," she said. "And it suits you. You have a quiet strength, Daniel. People feel safe around you. That's something rare." Daniel absorbed her words with a quiet gratitude. He didn't feel pressure. He didn't feel overwhelmed. He simply felt understood. Clara motioned for him to sit with her near a small table by the window. They sat across from each other as the soft gray light filled the room, and then began a conversation that would shape everything that followed. Clara asked gently, "Why do you want to help people express themselves?" Daniel thought for a moment. He didn't want to give a fast answer. He wanted to give an honest one. "Because for a long time," he said slowly, "I didn't know how to express myself. I had ideas, but I kept them inside. I was afraid. I felt small. And when I started practicing speaking, I started to feel free. I want to help others feel that freedom." Clara nodded slowly, as if confirming a truth she already sensed inside him. "Helping others express themselves," she said, "is one of the most powerful gifts you can give. Many people feel unseen. Many people feel unheard. And when you help someone find their voice, you help them rediscover a part of themselves." Daniel listened carefully, taking in every word. Clara continued, "But remember, helping others starts with practicing your own voice. Learn first. Grow first. And then you will naturally be able to guide others." Daniel felt clarity rising in him. It was as if his path had just been gently lit by a candle. He asked, "What should I do next?" His voice wasn't desperate or anxious. It was curious, open, ready. Clara smiled warmly. Start simple, she said. Speak every day as you've been doing. Listen deeply. Learn from the world around you. Slowly build confidence. Then start speaking to small groups, like yesterday. Share simple stories. And when you're ready, you can help others share theirs. Daniel felt a deep calm in her words. They didn't push him forward too fast. They didn't demand perfection. They simply pointed him in a direction he could walk one gentle step at a time. And Daniel, Clara added softly, you don't need to rush. The voice grows naturally. You just need to keep using it. Daniel nodded slowly. I can do that, he said. I can keep speaking. Clara leaned back in her chair and said, good. And when you're ready, you can come to more workshops. I teach every week. You're welcome anytime. Daniel felt his shoulders relax as if a weight had been lifted. Thank you, he said. I'll be here. They talked for a little longer about stories, communication, listening, and expression. And with every minute, Daniel felt the shape of his new path becoming clearer. It wasn't sharp or rigid. It was soft, steady, welcoming, like a path made for someone who was learning to walk with confidence. After leaving the community center, Daniel walked slowly through the park. The pond reflected the gray sky, and the breeze carried the soft scent of rain. He sat on the same bench as always, his thinking bench, and let everything settle inside him. He whispered, I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm walking my path. He felt something deep inside, not loud, not dramatic, but powerful. A realization. A transformation. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt he was truly becoming the person he always wanted to be, someone who acted, someone who spoke, someone who expressed himself, someone who could help others someday. He watched the ripples on the pond and whispered, every step matters. And he meant it with his whole heart.